Allow me to answer your question with a question. Actually, 5 questions. The why and the what of what you do is something that every writer needs to be aware of before you slip into the endless months of writing that finishing a novel requires. So today, let's go over some of the questions that every novel writer should ask themselves. Please hold all questions until the end. All right, the first question that you should ask yourself is, why are you writing this novel? I think as long as you're aware of why you're doing it, there isn't really a bad reason to write a novel. I think people run into problems when they are writing because they think they want something or they think they're going to get something, but that's not actually what's motivating them. You need to understand what your goals are for your project because that's going to influence how you go about that project. Writing because you want to sell books or publish, and writing because you want to bring a story to life or for some other personal reason are both valid reasons to write a novel, but both of those require a very different approach to how you go about writing. Writing for the market or writing so that you can get a book deal means understanding trends, knowing the audience for your book, and understanding what agents are looking for. If your goal is to sell a lot of books, then you need to get on top of this stuff. That's not 100% necessary. A lot of people get book deals and sell books without knowing anything about the market or trends or anything like that. But if you want to maximize your possibility of success in this area, you need to understand these things. On the other hand, if you just want to bring an idea to life or tell a personal story, or if writing a novel is something on your bucket list that you want to tick off, then none of this stuff around markets and trends and agents, none of that stuff really matters. You have more freedom to approach the story as you want without worrying about an audience. You can still strive to write an excellent story, but fitting it into a product that you can sell is not something you need to worry about. You need to understand what your goals are when it comes to writing this particular novel, as those will influence how you write it and what you should focus on. These things will affect what advice you should follow, what kind of timeline you can expect for the project, and even just simple things like what is going to motivate you or how you're going to make decisions about what direction to take the story in. Understanding why you're writing is very important. Next question that you should ask yourself of your novel: why would someone read this novel? Or what makes this story worth telling? Every story has selling points, even stories that you're not selling. These are the positive attributes that make the story good. They're the things that make the story worth telling. It could be that you have a really interesting character. It could be a fantastical or richly authored setting. It could be an intriguing premise or plot twist. Whatever story you are crafting, think about the high points of that story. Think about what would draw a reader in. Think about what would pique curiosity and arouse interest, or possibly arouse arousal if you're writing erotica. This is important because whatever the strengths of your story are, you want to make sure you lean into them and that those strengths don't fall through the cracks. Say you have 2 characters that have really great interactions whenever together. Just anytime that those 2 characters are in the same scene together, the writing just sings. It's electric. It's amazing. If you have something like that in your story, you want to make sure that you don't keep those characters separate for most of the plot. You want to play into those strengths. Identify what are the strong points of your novel, the selling points of it, even if you don't want to sell it. Identify what makes that story special, what really makes it great, and make sure that you lean into those things. Make sure that you're getting the most out of the strengths that your story has. Next question you should ask yourself about your novel: are you telling the most interesting part of the story? I've talked before about how the world of your novel and the characters and the setting and everything within it should be like a big painting on a big expansive canvas, and your novel is like a 12 by 12 frame that you're putting on a specific part of that canvas. You want the lives of your characters to extend backwards and forwards past the plot of your novel. That's how you create an immersive world and realistic, believable, deep characters. You don't want it to seem like the characters in the world just sort of sprang into existence in order for your story to happen. If you set up your characters and your world like this, though, you run into a potential issue, which is you run the risk of not telling the most interesting story. If you place that 12 by 12 frame on a boring part of the canvas or the less exciting parts of that canvas, then that could be a problem. Sometimes novels start way too early. There's too long of a gap between the exciting stuff and chapter 1. Sometimes novels start too late after a bunch of interesting stuff has happened to your characters and we're learning about what happens after that stuff. Sometimes novels focus on the boring parts of the world where we only hear secondhand about the much more interesting exploits of characters who are living off of the page. You should have a well thought out reason why this time, this part of the broader world of your novel is what's being shown. Why is this part of the broader lives of your characters the most interesting part to tell? Why is this the time that we're seeing? You don't want the reader thinking about a more interesting story that you're hinting at that they aren't seeing. Next question you need to ask yourself of your novel: when is it done? At first glance, this might seem like an obvious question. A novel is done at the end of the last chapter. Or I suppose if you have an epilogue, and then there's always the acknowledgments. There's the links to your social media. There's the preview of the next book in the series. You might have an index. You might at first glance think that your novel is done when you finish writing about the villain being defeated and you have the love interests off screen releasing their pent-up sexual tension. But that's not always the case. Finishing a draft is not necessarily finishing a novel. So if that's the case, then when are you finished? Are you finished when you get a book deal and it's published? Are you finished when you're happy with the story? Is one draft enough? Do you want to get it critiqued? What about an editor? There's all kinds of different stopping points that you can take with a project like a novel, and it's a good idea to have that figured out beforehand. A better way to frame this question might be, when are you ready to start your next project? When are you going to put this novel away and move on to something else? If you don't know where you want to end up, then how do you expect to get there? You should know this before you start work on your project. And the last question you should ask yourself about your novel: is this the novel that you want to write? Life is short. There are a finite number of novels that you will have time to write in your lifetime. There's all kinds of other commitments that you're going to have, like work and school and children and cats and whatever else, things that are going to take your time, things that are going to reduce the total amount of writing that you can do in your lifetime. Any novel that is lucky enough to get some of that precious finite resource, which is your time, should be a novel that you are deeply invested in. Make sure that the novel that is getting your attention is the one that most deserves it. Speaking of deserving things, you deserve a good conclusion to this video, but I didn't really write one, so you're not going to get one. I'm sorry. Anyway, so there you have it. If you have any questions about these questions, please leave a comment down below with your questions. If you want to see more stuff like this, you can check out all my other writing advice related videos and subscribe to my channel. I post new videos 3 times a week. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.